On the day of the eclipse, which was April 8th, 2024, I thought it would be really great for me to return to my home in Paradise. I often make trips back to Paradise where my mother built the last house to be built in Paradise before the bridges were built. And when I say Paradise, I mean Paradise Island. So, being an auspicious day, I thought I should return to that place and take the day off. It was a Monday. And and then I took a series of pictures, and I the next day thought about how I would make a video for this day, and realized that it was going to be really complicated. And if I were to include my whole story of how I came to be living in Paradise, because in actual fact, my first home was a place called Angel's Island, which was near a place called Devil's Hole. And I never really had a home after that. And actually, we didn't even own that home. We rented. And so when my mother acquired money, she chose to build a home for her children and of course my stepfather's children uh, in Paradise. And it was a pretty special place. And the story of that place is very long and too complicated. I couldn't sleep the next night thinking about all the things I could put in the video. So I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible and just include mostly photographs of the day. But I did kind of get sidetracked about the Ocean Club, which was built by my neighbor Huntington Hartford. And his story is again a very long story, but it's pretty amazing the cloisters that were built. So I'm going to include some pictures of the cloisters uh, and um, and my relatives who stand there on two large bronze statues. So I'm going to just start the video now, and we'll see how it comes out. As my art teacher said, your first idea is your best idea. And I wondered whether he said that because if I would just procrastinate and never do anything if I was trying to think of my best idea, or whether he really believed that your first idea was the best idea. I'll never really know that. But it is important to just do sometimes and not think about how best to do it, but just do it. Do it till you're satisfied, or the time is now. Do it. Although I was racing to get to Paradise before the time of the eclipse, I did stop and take a picture of this fellow's boat. He doesn't like his name mentioned, doesn't want people to know who he is. But it's a pretty cool boat. I got a tour of it, well, at least in the main salon at one point with my brother. And it's really a work boat converted into a yacht. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I then continued on down Paradise. These are the multi-million-dollar homes that now exist in a place that was once a casuarina forest, and where the little bit off to the left, the stables once stood, the last of the horse stables of Paradise. And so there they are. Tour boats used to come to these beaches and bring tourists there, but now are private homes, so restricted, and buoys were put out to keep people from entering the beach and walking the beaches there. It's now considered private property. This is present day Ocean Club, which was the first development really to happen on Paradise Island. And this is my distant relative, Delano Roosevelt, who stands there on one side of the cloisters. My mother took me here as a child before the bridges were built and told me that my father's family were related to him. Actually, that we're not related to him. He's related to us because we were related, at least my father's side, to his mother, Sarah. Turns out the next guy in the picture is going to be Dr. Livingston, which I'll talk about more. But they were sort of relatives, distant cousins or something. That's quite interesting. And the writing under the President Roosevelt is quite interesting. Yeah, so my middle name is Delano after him. The rest of my family were named Burbanks because we were related to Luther Burbank, who did a lot with plants and crossbred potatoes to make the Idaho potato. And so everybody else in the family had middle name of Burbank. I'm the only one that got Delano. Anyway, moving on. I just wrote it down to so I could read it, and I realized that I completely misunderstood this. Anyway, this is how it reads. Any nationality, no matter how small, has the inherent right to its nationhood, which basically I didn't realize seems to point at the fact that the Jewish people have a right to their nation because it says nationality. It doesn't, I thought it was all about each nation has a right for its independence and blah, blah, blah. But what I see now is a completely different interpretation because I thought it was every nation, no matter how small, has inherent rights to its nationhood, meaning they have the right to independence. But when you say any nationality, it means that, your tribe basically should have its own nation. And so I never really realized that that's what that actually says. So that's really an interesting interpretation. I thought it was more about, the United States not interfering in other people's nations and all that. And now I realize that it has a completely different meaning. And I'd be curious to know what other um, people might interpret this writing. But that's what I see now that I read it and examine it closely. So, Dr. Livingston, I presume, stepping out of the jungle bloom into the new day sun. Anyway, so what did you find there? Did you stand a while and stare? Did you meet anyone? Anyway, it turns out that he was found deep in Ethiopia, where at the time 75% of the African population were slaves. And he was appalled at the treatment that they were given by their own people. Unfortunately, the world today seems to want to blame white people for slavery when in fact slavery has existed since the beginning of time and Africans did sell their brothers into slavery and they had slavery within Africa and enslaved their own people. And so anyway, yes, so presume was when somebody did get sent into the jungle to find him, and when they did, that was the famous statement. And the quote I made was from the Moody Blues song. So yeah, so this is what he had to say. If success attend me, grant me humility, so not to be arrogant about one's success. And if failure, resignation to thy will. Basically meaning that it is God's will that he is here doing what he's doing, and that if he fails, he needs to resign from the journey that God has sent him on. And that's really kind of a deep, deep, deep statement. Anyway, I'm going to next go on to some of the beautiful things there in the cloisters. Beautiful, beautiful statues. I'm sorry to say I did know some of the young boys who vandalized the statues, unfortunately, but they are beautiful. And the flowers there, I took these pictures a couple of years ago, and it's a beautiful place. And the water lilies are lovely. And I managed to capture these pictures a long time ago, a couple of years back. And I guess we're going to come up to the cloisters, which I'm going to have to tell you a story. So the cloisters was a statue built, or I shouldn't say a statue, but a building built long ago, and nobody could figure out how to put it back together, actually. It was stored in warehouses somewhere in the U.S. by one of the very wealthy families, and Huntington Hartford learned about it and chose it to be put in the cloisters, and it was quite an achievement to get it put together here, but it's a beautiful place, and you might even call it sacred. Okay, this is Cabbage Beach, where we once hung out long ago. I got swamped on the beach. It's quite a story long ago when there was great surf there. And my little dory and fellow, only one of all my friends came to help me. The rest all abandoned me with a broken leg. I had a cast on in the boat. And we had backed into the beach to pick up some girls, and the engine stuck in the sand, and the wave went out. And all my friends ran, and then nobody came to help me except one guy, and big guy, and he helped push the boat off, and I managed to run the engine to push the water out of the boat. The gas tank was floating. It was quite a thing. Cabbage Beach was a real hangout long ago, right there by the Rio. And there's Atlantis on the other side. So that's how it sits today. Yeah, so when I arrived, there were breakers. It was low tide, and the waves were breaking on the shallows. And I was not sure what was going to happen later in the day, if the waves were going to increase. So unfortunately, I anchored the boat a little far from the beach and put out a stern anchor, which later dragged, unfortunately. But anyway, I had to swim my things ashore. I had a folding seat that had a nice dry space in it. I could put my cell phone and my camera and a shirt to change into. And then I had, let's see, a cooler with some drinks. And I also had a bag of frangipani flowers I brought for the yoga retreat to let them have for satsang and to put on the Buddha there. So I put all the things in the water, and my plan was to swim them ashore, but I sort of put the things to float and then threw the bag of flowers, which was puffed up with air, and got ready to get in the water, and I didn't realize that the bag would catch the wind and blow fast. So when I got into the water and started pushing the cooler in the seat, the flowers had already drifted with the wind, and so I started to push everything and swim for it, but it was blowing too fast, so I had to abandon the cooler and the seat and swim fast to catch the bag of flowers, and then caught it quite a ways away and got it in my teeth and swam back, and my cooler had started to fill with water, but fortunately the seat did not. I managed to swim into shore and walk onto the beach without getting knocked down by a wave. And so it was a success, but quite a challenge. So the pink thing is the seat that opens up and can put dry things. And there's my bag with the camera and glasses and the cooler, and then the flowers that I've rested something upon, and my drinking glass. So there's the things for the story. So I took a picture to the east, and I do have the date to give you on that one, but the next picture I don't really have a date. That's way back in the early days, before even the Holiday Inn was built. That's looking in the other direction. These were pictures in my files right here from long ago. So that's how it once looked. I tried to get a picture of the eclipse, but it really didn't show up. So I found a way into the bush to find what was left of my mother's house. And there's a great picture of my mom right here at the shower that I have in my files. And that's all that's left of the house. The rest of it was wiped out for tax reasons. My mom really loved this picture. At least she said she loved it. So it's kind of nice that I can put it in the video. I have many, many wonderful pictures of her. Great smile, and she's in her Poochie bathing suit, and this was the place that we were supposed to shower before coming up to the house. And the bell that hangs by my front door was originally hanging there at the main house that would be rung to call the children up from the beach. And anyway, everything has been wiped off the face of the earth except the tennis house and the dock house. And I meant to make a whole video including all the pictures of the house, but I decided in this video to just move on to the yoga retreat and the day that I spent there, and not get all sidetracked on trying to create a video all about the house. And I'm going to do that in another video. So as a photographer, I often don't have my own picture, but I set up the camera and took a self-portrait there. I wore the cross. The joke is that I'm Christopher from Paradise, and I don't walk on water, I walk under the water, and my last name is Hartley, which sounds like love, and I often make jokes about that. And it's true that my name is Christopher, and I come from a place called Paradise, and Yeah, it's kind of funny. And what was really weird is when I had my Catholic priest there teaching me in the beach house, it was quite bizarre that I had a Catholic priest tutoring me to get my SATs done. And he answered any questions I had about religion. He knew of all the religions. He was a theologian, and his name was Christopher Crawley. Anyway, there's a picture of me to add to the story. Guess I should add that I'm now, let's see, 68 years old. Look, this is looking out from the steps. And I've decided to make this video and not make any correction, just wing it. That's another self-portrait. Well, at first I was hesitant to interact with anyone, but when I saw these two ladies come with children, I decided when they paused in front of me to go and bring them flowers, which is what I like to do when I bring the frangipani flowers to the yoga retreat, as I hand them out to people, male or female or children, as a gift. It's kind of a wonderful thing to come with. And we chatted, and they turned out they were staying at the yoga retreat, and they were moving into the nicer places that are more expensive on the beach. And we chit-chatted about this and that. It was a nice interaction, and the children loved the flowers, and it was all very good. I thought it'd be nice to show the waves and action on the beach, have a little video. Unfortunately, on a windy day, you get a lot of sound that messes up the microphone, so I removed the sound. But it's lovely to see. That looks like a tide rip there where it, this was Joanne or Joanna. I told her I could remember her name because of my neighbor had the same name. This is coming up to the top of the stairs, approaching the old yoga building, and that's looking back. And I met a number of people. Yeah, so she was very lovely. I got one of my flowers. And I think there was a Haitian talking to her there. He didn't want his picture taken. I got pictures of, I asked everyone permission before I took their picture and if I could use their image and blah, blah, blah. So that was nice. These are only the people who authorized me to use their picture. So there's the garden, walking down the path. It's very lush and beautiful. And this is an orchid that I found along the way. This lady and her daughter were from, I think, Bulgaria. And the little girl, I thought, didn't speak English, but turned out she was very shy, and that's why she didn't speak or say much. But anyway, there was a cute series of pictures. This is how I found the Buddha. And it's interesting, they have a woman in the back with a child, which I think is meant to be sort of, I don't know, Mother of Christ. Anyway, that's how I found it. There were no flowers, and somebody had left the beads there, and there were some rocks which I used to balance a little glass Christmas ball that was floating in the water. You'll see next how I rearrange things. Yeah, so that's the Christmas ball in place. I used the little gravel rocks that were in there to balance it so it wouldn't roll off, and I added another flower. Yeah, so this is looking out in the harbor where the boat brings the people in, and there's their new boat. I had a picture of the old boat, but I cut it out. It's very nice, the entrance. And this is kind of nice spiral painting. I was really into spirals long ago, about the universe and galaxies being spirals. Well, not the universe, but that's the dock house. That's what my mother built. That's one of the old yoga boats there, and that's the ocean. Anyway, flowers, the kind of wild hibiscus, and there's the artwork on one of the buildings there, quite nice, and some beautiful flower shots. They did a nice job of landscaping there, all volunteer. Well, they have a nice sign, a couple of signs there. This one says, True World Order, serve love, meditate, realize, unity in diversity. I don't know that that means invade someone else's country, but it does mean that we should be open to diversity. And I guess, not have war and let each culture have their own culture, but I'm not sure whether they should bring their cultures into other people's culture. That's kind of one of the reasons that the Bible says the tribes shouldn't mix. But of course, religion is rather a mess, and maybe I don't know, the idea of diversity is supposed to be a good one, but as long as you have religions that keep wanting to be the dominant religion, of course, actually, one might say that if we all had one religion, maybe that would be the solution to all our problems. I mean, the whole idea of one God, I was supposed to unite people, not call them, give them a different name, and call it their God, which is one of the biggest problems we have in the world today. So this song seems to say the same thing that I just said. God is one. The names are many. Actually, there's supposed to be no name for God. There is no higher religion than love. And that is true, except we find a dilemma where countries form borders to, back in the tribal days, to keep the hunting grounds for their people, since other people may overpopulate and kill all their game, and then they want to come to someone else's territory and take their game. So one protects one's territory so that they can protect their people. And this is one of the reasons we have countries today. And invasions of other countries were usually made to take their territory and take their resources. But now with the movement of people just moving in for other reasons where they can make more money, and in fact the whole business of political asylum was basically to wipe out communism, so that any people who rebelled against their government could be given safe haven in another country. So that is kind of why people were led into other countries based on political asylum, to encourage them to rebel against the Communist Party and retreat to the capitalist world. But it wasn't really meant for everybody to just migrate to where the money is, because that is a very difficult problem due to population. Anyway, I don't want to get too philosophical about the immigration issue. Obviously, some countries need cheap labor, and then there's what they call brain drain, where actually developed countries take the best brains from the poor countries and accept them in. And you also accept cheap labor in, but it has to be controlled. It can't be just a mass movement that can disrupt a working system. We do live in a system which is rather a necessity. And of course, oil and machines are our new slaves that do our hard labor. So the world has changed a lot. Well, I left that sound in there to show the noise of the ships disturbing the peace, but I guess it's a necessity for industry and to make money for the Bahamas. Well, my journey was finished. I was taking the rest of the flowers to reception, and this was Andrea. Well, I can remember her name because I knew an Andrea Butterbrot when I was in Switzerland in school, who became a girlfriend. And so there she is, and this girl, I took a picture of her because of her purple hair, and got her to turn her head so we could get a better view. Well, on leaving, I had to swim twice for the boat to get everything aboard, and it really was quite rough. I got airborne going through the surf, and then turned to the west and rode the sea to the harbor entrance. And this is the harbor entrance. Well, the videos was getting long, and I realized that I might have to cut it short because I did a whole tour of the harbor. This is where was quarried the stone to build either the building. I'm not sure about the lighthouse, but there's some interesting history along here. And there's the other side, the yoga retreat, and that's it.